On the 4th of June this year, it will be 85 years since Ruth Beard and I stepped onto the Woolloomooloo wharf after coming from Tasmania to join to the Sisters of Charity. We then went by taxi to Chalice Avenue, to Bethania, that was the novitiate building of the time. It was the same as all training for religious in those days. It was a very ordered process, and having the rule of St. Ignatius, it had a military aspect with the training, but I didn't mind that. I like order and things in the right place. That was the way everyone was trained, and a lot depended on the novice mistress. In our case, it was very good. She looked after the spirituality of each one of us to the best of her ability, and tried to see that we were learning and practicing what we were supposed to be doing. And I think living in different communities was much the same. We had a common rule for all our houses, so you were never out of place in any one of them. And then, commencing I think in the 60s, we were given many opportunities to go to lectures on different aspects of theology or things like that, and some people were able to continue on. Others just went to the lectures, maybe got quite a lot of help in that way, and then just continued on in the same old way until Vatican II, when so many changes came. At first we couldn't cope with them actually, but eventually we became used to all the different ways and means of living, and there was a greater spreading out of our opportunities to improve our spiritual lives. The common sort of feeling, and it was like a common rule for everyone. And then after Vatican II, we discovered that we could make suggestions. We were not bound by silence if we thought up a good idea, that we could express ourselves in a more open way. When I was at St. Columba's, we changed a method of teaching there, and we went into having smaller classes. You may not have taught them much, but you had to see them every morning and every evening, and you were responsible. You were kind of, they were put there for you to kind of keep an eye on them, and it was like a pastoral care of the group that you were given charge of for each of the 12 months. It was the beginning of my great interest in the story of Mary Aikenhead and the history of her congregation in Australia. After my training, I became a teacher and spent many years in various places and in different parts of teaching, and as well as doing housekeeping jobs, looking after boarders and various things, but I always seemed to revert. There was always seemed to be a need for me to go back to teaching, which I did for the last 14 years of my teaching life at St Columba's in Essendon. And then from there I stayed on at the college and set up their archives, still continuing my interest in the history, and I was able to contribute to the story of St Columba's with a small book to cover the first 90 years. And after being in archives there for 16 years, I retired and went back to Hobart and spent 10 years down there, not knowing why I went, but soon discovering that there was a 170th anniversary of the landing of the sisters there coming up, and I was invited to the committee, and through various ways and means I wrote a book about the sisters in Tasmania, and that was using the archives and anything I could find to research whatever happened down there in those 170 years. So the history has always been intermingled with my love of teaching, and then about 10 years ago, my sight began to fail, and that is something that has completely cut me off from reading, but I do get a lot of help from the Blind Institute with sound on various machines to read books and to play CDs. So because of that, I asked to move here 5 years ago and have settled into this life of sort of retirement here. I visit the chapels here every day for Mass, either the private hospital chapel or the main chapel in the public hospital. And in that way, I meet up with quite a lot of people who are asking for help in the way of prayers, and that's the only way I can really help people now, and I'm always glad to do that. Quite a few of them from the prison ward, when they have to come to hospital for treatment, they're usually very, very ill, or have to have quite radical surgery or something like that. Otherwise, it's yesterday I was asked to pray for. I was introduced to a lady who had been homeless, and she was ready to leave hospital, and they had just found accommodation for her, and she had all her prayer books and everything there going off, and she was thanking Divine Providence for looking after her so much, for sending her to St Vincent's to be able to for them to get accommodation for her. It's all a varied ministry. Reaching 100, I never thought about it. It just happened, and the years just seemed to come one after the other, and finally I was 80 years professed, and no one had been that for a while. And then the next year I was 100 years old, and they just seemed to come and go. Yes, well, so many people were interested in it, I think, that I sort of began the count to get rid of it, to get to the end. But it was a wonderful day when it did come. Well, we had the Mass that a few people said was really church. The people came to, and they just sat on the chairs facing the altar, and the three priests offered the Mass. Father Zahir, Father Peter Karukan, and Father Mel Crawford. And Father Zahir, being a Syrian, had great ideas of celebration, and he was very dressed up in gold vestments. The other two priests were just in their white albs, and the people turned round, and those who were there turned round and faced the altar and joined in the Mass and the singing. And Father Peter Karukan did the eulogy, or the homily it was supposed to be, but it was fitting, but quite different. And then at the end of Mass, I was called up to stand with the celebrants and put my hand up with theirs for the blessing of the congregation. And I think a lot of people thought that was church in a different way, or in a progressive way. I sort of lived day by day. I thank God every night that I had another day, and then get up, and if I wake up in the morning, I thank Him again for looking after me during the night and bringing me to another day. There must be a purpose, His purpose in keeping me there for that. This thing that I've just written, it just tells my little brief story of the different places I lived in over those back years, and the people who were there in those days. Some of the people, I've missed out on a lot of them because I forgot them at the time when I was doing that. And I can't look up any records to check because I can't see to read a thing.